Chapter 1, Part 3. She spoke to Carol Van Sant. "Gee, no, Joanna," Carol said. "That doesn't sound like the sort of thing that would interest me. Thanks for asking me, though." She was cleaning the plastic divider in Stacy and Allison's room, wiping a span of its accordion folds with firm downstrokes of a large yellow sponge. "It would only be for a couple of hours," Joanna said. "In the evening, or if it's more convenient with everybody, sometime during school hours." Carol, crouching to wipe the lower part of the span, said, "I'm sorry, but I just don't have much time for that sort of thing." Joanna watched her for a moment. "Doesn't it bother you," she said, "that the central organization here in Stepford, the only organization that does anything significant as far as community projects are concerned, is off limits to women? Doesn't that seem a little archaic to you?" "Archaic?" Carol said, squeezing her sponge in a bucket of sudsy water. Joanna looked at her. "Out of date, old-fashioned," she said. Carol squeezed the sponge out above the bucket. "No, it doesn't seem archaic to me," she said. She stood up straight and reached the sponge to the top of the next span of folds. "Ted's better equipped for that sort of thing than I am," she said, and began wiping the folds with firm downstrokes, each one neatly overlapping the one before. "And men need a place where they can relax and have a drink or two," she said. "Don't women?" "No, not as much." Carol shook her neat, red-haired shampoo commercial head, not turning from her wiping. "I'm sorry, Joanna," she said. "I just don't have time for a get-together." "Okay," Joanna said. "If you change your mind, let me know." "Would you mind if I don't walk you downstairs?" No, of course not." She spoke to Barbara Chameleon on the other side of the Van Sants.
"Thanks, but I don't see how I could manage it."
Barbara said. She was a square-jawed, brown-haired woman in a snug pink dress, moulding an exceptionally good figure.
"Lloyd stays in town a lot,"
she said.
"and the evenings he doesn't. He likes to go to the men's association. I'd hate to pay a sitter for just..."
"It could be during school hours," Joanna said.
"No,"
Barbara said.
"I think you better count me out."
She smiled, widely and attractively.
"I'm glad we've met, though,"
she said.
"Would you like to come in and sit for a while? I'm ironing."
"No, thanks," Joanna said. "I want to speak to some of the other women." She spoke to Marge McCormick.
"I honestly don't think I'd be interested in that."
And Kit Sunderson.
"Oh my God, I'm afraid I don't really have the time. I'm really sorry, Mrs. Eberhardt."
And Donna Claybrook.
"That's a nice idea, but I'm so busy these days. Thanks for asking me, though."
She met Mary Ann Stavros in an aisle in the Centre Market.
"No, I don't think I'd have time for anything like that. There's so much to do around the house, you know."
"But you go out sometimes, don't you?" Joanna said.
Of course I do."
Mary Ann said.
"I'm out now, aren't I?"
"I mean out, for relaxation." Mary Ann smiled and shook her head, swaying her sheaves of straight, blonde hair.
"No, not often,"
she said.
"I don't feel much need for relaxation. See you."
And she went away, pushing her grocery cart, and stopped, took a can from a shelf, looked at it, and fitted it down into her cart and went on. Joanna looked after her and into the cart of another woman slowly going past her. My God, she thought, they even fill their carts neatly. She looked into her own, a jumble of boxes and cans and jars. A guilty impulse to put it in order prodded her. But I'm damned if I will, she thought, and grabbed a box from the shelf ivory snow and tossed it in. Didn't even need the damn stuff. She spoke to the mother of one of Kim's classmates in Dr. Very's waiting room, and to Yvonne Weisgalt on the other side of the Stavroses, and to Jill Burke in the house next over. All of them turned her down. They either had too little time or too little interest to meet with other women and talk about their shared experiences. Bobby had even worse luck, considering that she spoke to almost twice as many women. "One taker," she told Joanna. "One 85-year-old widow who dragged me through her door and kept me prisoner for a solid hour of close-up saliva spray. Anytime we're ready to storm the Men's Association, Eder May Hamilton is ready and willing." "We better keep in touch with her," Joanna said. "Oh no, we're not done yet." They spent a morning calling on women together, On the theory, Bobby, that the two of them speaking in planned ambiguities might create the encouraging suggestion of a phalanx of women with room for one more. It didn't work.
Jesus,
Bobby said, ramming her car viciously up Short Ridge Hill.
Something fishy is going on here. We're in the town that time forgot.
One afternoon, Joanna left Pete and Kim in the care of 16-year-old Melinda Stavros and took the train into the city, where she met Walter and their friends Shep and Sylvia Tackover at an Italian restaurant in the theatre district. It was good to see Shep and Sylvia again. They were a bright, homely, energetic couple who had survived several bad blows, including the death by drowning of a 4-year-old son. It was good to be in the city again too. Joanna relished the colour and bustle of the busy restaurant. She and Walter spoke enthusiastically about Stepford's beauty and quiet, and the advantages of living in a house rather than an apartment. She didn't say anything about how home-centred the Stepford women were, or about the absence of outside-the-home activities. It was vanity, she supposed, an unwillingness to make herself the object of commiseration, even Shep and Sylvia's. She told them about Bobby and how amusing she was, and about Stepford's fine, uncrowded schools. Walter didn't bring up the Men's Association, and neither did she. Sylvia, who was with the city's Housing and Development Administration, would have had a fit. But on the way to the theatre, Sylvia gave her a sharp, appraising look and said,
A tough adjustment? In ways, she said. You'll make it, Sylvia said and smiled at her. How's the photography? Must be great for you up there, coming everything with a fresh eye.
I haven't done a damn thing, she said. Bobby and I have been running around trying to drum up some women's lib activity. It's a bit of a backwater, to tell you the truth.
Running and drumming isn't your work, Sylvia said. Photography is, or ought to be.
I know, she said. I got a plumber coming in any day now to put in the darkroom sink.
Walter looks chipper.
He is. It's a good life, really. The play, a musical hit of the previous season, was disappointing. In the train going home, after they had hashed it over for a few minutes, Walter put on his glasses and got out some paperwork, and Joanna skimmed time and then sat looking out the window and smoking, watching the darkness and the occasional light riding through it. Sylvia was right. Photography was her work. To hell with the Stepford women. Except Bobby, of course. Both cars were at the station, so they had to ride home separately. Joanna went first in the station wagon, and Walter followed her in the Toyota. The centre was empty and stage-setty under its 3 streetlights. Yes, she would take pictures there, before the darkroom was finished. And there were headlights and lighted windows up at the Men's Association house, and a car waiting to pull out of its driveway. Melinda Stavros was yawning and smiling, and Pete and Kim were in their beds sound asleep. In the family room, there were empty milk glasses and plates on the lamp table, and crumpled balls of white paper on the sofa and the floor before it, and an empty ginger ale bottle on the floor among the balls of paper.
At least they don't pass it on to their daughters,
Joanna thought. The third time Walter went to the Men's Association, he called at about 9 o'clock and told Joanna he was bringing home the new projects committee to which he had been appointed the time before. Some construction work was being done at the house. She could hear the whine of machinery in the background, and they couldn't find a quiet place where they could sit and talk.
Fine, she said. I'm getting the rest of the junk out of the darkroom so you can have the whole...
No, listen, he said. Stay upstairs with us and get into the conversation. A couple of them are die-hard men-onlys. It won't do them any harm to hear a woman make intelligent comments. I'm assuming you will.
Thanks. Won't they object?
It's our house.
Are you sure you're not looking for a waitress?
He laughed. Oh my God, there's no fooling her, he said. Okay, you got me. But an intelligent waitress, all right? Would you? It really might do some good.
Okay, she said. Give me 15 minutes and I'll even be an intelligent, beautiful waitress. How's that for cooperation?
Fantastic. Unbelievable. There were 5 of them, and one, a cheery little red-faced man of about 60, with toothpick ends of waxed moustache, was Ike Mazard, the magazine illustrator. Joanna, shaking his hand warmly, said,
I'm not sure I like you. You blighted my adolescence with those dream girls of yours.
And he, chuckling, said, You must have matched up pretty well.
Would you like to bet on that? She said.
The other four were all late 30s or early 40s. The tall, black-haired one, laxly arrogant, was Dale Kober, the president of the association. He smiled at her with green eyes that disparaged her and said, "Hello, Joanna. It's a pleasure." One of the die-hard men-onlys, she thought. Women are delay. His hand was smooth without pressure. The others were Anselm or Axhelm, Sunderson, Roddenberry. "I met your wife," she said to Sunderson, who was pale and paunchy, nervous-seeming. "If you're the Sundersons across the way, that is." "You did? We are, yeah. We're the only ones in Stepford. I invited her to a get-together, but she couldn't make it. She's not very social." Sunderson's eyes looked elsewhere, not at her. "I'm sorry, I missed your first name," she said. "Herb," he said, looking elsewhere. She saw them all into the living room and went into the kitchen for ice and soda and brought them to Walter at the bar cabinet. "Intelligent, beautiful," she said, and he grinned at her. She went back into the kitchen and filled bowls with potato chips and peanuts. There were no objections from the circle of men when, holding her glass, she said, "May I?" and eased into the sofa end Walter had saved for her. Ike Mazard and Anselm or Axhelm rose, and the others made "I'm thinking of rising" movements, except Dale Kober, who sat eating peanuts out of his fist, looking across the cocktail table at her with his disparaging green eyes. They talked about the Christmas Toys project and the Preserve the Landscape project. Roddenberry's name was Frank, and he had a pleasant, pug-nosed, blue-chinned face and a slight stutter. And Kober had a nickname, Diz, which hardly seemed to fit him. They talked about whether this year there shouldn't be Chanukah lights as well as a creche in the centre, now that there were a fair number of Jews in town. They talked about ideas for new projects. "May I say something?" she said. "Sure," Frank Roddenberry and Herb Sunderson said. Kober was lying back in his chair, looking at the ceiling, disparagingly, no doubt, his hands behind his head, his legs extended. "Do you think there might be a chance of setting up some evening lectures for adults?" she asked. "Or parent and teenager forums in one of the school auditoriums?" "On what subject?" Frank Roddenberry asked. "On any subject that's general interest in," she said. "The drug thing, which we're all concerned about, but which the Chronicle seems to sweep under the rug. What rock music is all about. I don't know, anything that would get people out and listening and talking to each other." That's interesting," Claude Anselm or Axhelm said, leaning forward and crossing his legs, scratching at his temple. He was thin and blonde, bright-eyed, restless. "And maybe it would get the women out too," she said. "In case you don't know it, this town is a disaster area for babysitters." Everyone laughed, and she felt good and at ease. She offered other possible forum topics, and Walter added a few, and so did Herb Sunderson. Other new project ideas were brought up. She took part in the talk about them, and the men, except Kober, damn him, paid close attention to her. Ike, Mazard, Frank, Walter, Claude, even Herb looked right at her, and they nodded and agreed with her, or thoughtfully questioned her, and she felt very good indeed, meeting their questions with wit and good sense. Move over, Gloria Steinem. She saw to her surprise and embarrassment that Ike Mazard was sketching her. Sitting in his chair, next to still watching the ceiling Dale Kober, he was pecking with his blue pen at a notebook on his dapper striped knee, looking at her and looking at his pecking. Ike Mazard sketching her. The men had fallen silent. They looked into their drinks, swirled their ice cubes. "Hey," she said, shifting uncomfortably and smiling. I'm no Ike Mazard girl."
"Every girl's an Ike Mazard girl,"
Mazard said, and smiled at her and smiled at his pecking. She looked to Walter. He smiled embarrassedly and shrugged. She looked at Mazard again and, not moving her head, at the other men. They looked at her and smiled, edgily. "Well, this is a conversation killer," she said.
"Relax, you can move,"
Mazard said. He turned a page and pecked again. Frank said,
I don't think another baseball field is all that important."
She heard Kim cry, "Mommy!" But Walter touched her arm and, putting his glass down, got up and excused himself past Claude. The men talked about new projects again. She said a word or two, moving her head, but aware all the time of Mazard looking at her and pecking. Try being Gloria Steinem when Ike Mazard is drawing you. It was a bit show-offy of him. She wasn't any once in a lifetime, mustn't be missed, not even in the Poochie lounges. And what were the men so tense about? Their talking seemed forced and gap-ridden. Herb Sunderson was actually blushing. She felt suddenly as if she were naked, as if Mazard were drawing her in obscene poses. She crossed her legs, wanted to cross her arms too, but didn't. "Jesus, Joanna, he's a show-offy artist, that's all, you're dressed." Walter came back and leaned on her. "Just a bad dream," he said, and straightening to the men. Anyone want a refill? Diz? Frank?"
I'll take a small one.
Mazard said, looking at her, pecking. Bathroom down that way?" Herb asked, getting up. The talking went on, more relaxed and casual now. New projects, old projects. Mazard tucked his pen into his jacket, smiling. She said, "Phew," and fanned herself. Koba raised his head, keeping his hands behind it, and chin against chest, looked at the notebook on Mazard's knee. Mazard turned pages, looking at Koba, and Koba nodded and said, "You never cease to amaze me." "Do I get to see?" she asked.
Of course.
Mazard said, and half rose, smiling, holding out the open notebook to her. Walter looked too, and Frank leaned in to see. Portraits of her. There were page after page of them, small and precise and flattering, as Ike Mazard's work had always been. Full faces, three-quarter views, profiles, smiling, not smiling, talking, frowning. "These are beautiful," Walter said, and Frank said,
Great, Ike!
Claude and Herb came around behind the sofa. She leafed back through the pages. They're wonderful," she said. "I wish I could say they were absolutely accurate."
But they are.
Mazard said, "Oh, God bless you." She gave the notebook to him, and he put it on his knee and turned its pages, getting out his pen. He wrote on a page and tore it out and offered it to her. It was one of the three-quarter views, a non-smiling one with the familiar no capitals Ike Mazard signature. She showed it to Walter. He said, "Thanks, Ike."
My pleasure.
She smiled at Mazard. "Thank you," she said. "I forgive you for blighting my adolescence." She smiled at all of them. "Does anyone want coffee?" They all did, except Claude, who wanted tea. She went into the kitchen and put the drawing on the placemats on top of the refrigerator. An Ike Mazard drawing of her. Who'd have thunk it? Back then, when she was 11 or 12, reading Mom's journals and companions, it was foolish of her to have gotten so uptight about it. Mazard had been nice to do it. Smiling, she ran water into the coffee maker, plugged it in and put in the basket and spooned in coffee. She put the top on, pressed the plastic lid down onto the coffee can and turned around. Koba leaned in the doorway watching her, his arms folded, his shoulder to the jam. Very cool in his jade turtleneck, matching his eyes, of course, and a slate-grey corduroy suit. He smiled at her and said, "I like to watch women doing little domestic chores." "You came to the right town," she said. She tossed the spoon into the sink and took the coffee can to the refrigerator and put it in. Koba stayed there watching her. She wished Walter would come. You don't seem particularly dizzy," she said, getting out a saucepan for Claude's tea. "Why do they call you Diz?" "I used to work at Disneyland," he said. She laughed, going to the sink. "Oh, really?" she said. "That's really." She turned around and looked at him. "Don't you believe me?" he asked. "No," she said. "Why not?" She thought and knew. "Why not?" he said. "Tell me." To hell with him, she would. "You don't look like somebody who enjoys making people happy." Torpedoing forever, no doubt, the admission of women to the hallowed and sacrosanct men's association. Koba looked at her disparagingly. "How little you know," he said, and smiled and got off the jam and turned and walked away.